Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Nick the Booksmith, and today I wanted to go through some things that I thought might help folks who are thinking about either opening up an Etsy store or really any online presence, and or even those who have already opened up a store, an Etsy store or a web store, and perhaps they're having a little bit of trouble with sales or just some different things. So I have some tips that maybe you could try out. I have been on Etsy for almost a decade now. In about a month or two, I will have my 10th year on Etsy. And even though I wouldn't consider myself an authority on online presence or online stores or Etsy stores, I have been around long enough to see stores come and go, and to observe things that successful people have done, and maybe things that people who weren't as successful, some things that maybe they've done too, and maybe we can avoid some of those things. The hair, again, I don't know. I have this theory that by the time I'm like 80, I'm going to look like Phyllis Diller, so sorry. Okay, so I wrote some things down so that I didn't forget, and the first thing that I wrote down is when you're choosing a name for your website or for your Etsy store, I suggest that you keep it as simple as possible, easy to remember, and easy to spell. And this is because the Etsy search engine is crap. It has always been crap. For some reason, if you don't spell something exactly right, 9 times out of 10, Etsy's not going to help you find what you're looking for. And so if you have a store name that is easy to remember and or easy to spell, chances are you're going to get more traffic because people are going to be able to remember and type that in. With the Etsy search engine, if you've noticed, if you've ever had trouble searching for something before, especially like let's say a store name, and let's say the name is Blue Loon, and you typed in Loon Blue. Well, Etsy says, too bad, amigo, you don't get to go. And you have to remember that you just can't type into the search bar and hit search. Once you start typing something in, there's a little option that drops down below it that talks about store or shop names, including, and then whatever you've typed in. So unless you push your cursor down there and click that little shop name option, I don't even know what you're going to get. I can't even. So it is good to keep, like I said, keep your shop name simple, easy to remember, easy to spell. I have fallen into the trap. Those of you that have been around a while, maybe you remember what my shop name was before the Booksmith shop, and that was accessory, but it was spelled like it says in French. And so if you spoke French, you're like, hey, I know what that is. If you spoke any other language, you're like, I don't even know you. I don't even know you. I don't even know what you're selling. So take a lesson from me and my mistakes. Just keep it simple. A good thing about Google, though, is that if you are searching for a shop name, just go to Google. Just type in Etsy and then whatever you think it is. And Google is much more forgiving. They just pat you on the hand and they say, oh, is this what you were looking for? And then they give you 10 million options. And Etsy's like, you type in something and they send you in the opposite direction. So go to Google if you need to. If you're not sure exactly how to spell something, then go to Google. So a second thing that I wrote down was finding your niche. And most people that start an Etsy store, any online store, they know what they're going to be selling, whether it's supplies or handmade products or whatever it is that they're going to be selling. And so my tip would be to go check out other stores that are selling similar products and check out what their store looks like, check out their price points, check out the features that they are including in on their listings, and especially the successful people, the people that have been around for a while and they know what they're doing and they know their stuff. And so go check out what their stores look like, and get some tips just from looking off of their websites, their storefronts, because most successful people have a streamlined protocol that they follow as far as branding is concerned. And so when you look at somebody's website, if you know anything about them, you will be able to pick them out. Even if their store name isn't up at the top, you would be able to pick them out of competition. Let's say if you had two websites side by side, you would know. And that's important. So branding is super important. Another thing I was thinking of is marketing. And Etsy, back in the day, Etsy was a little bit better at helping newer stores get seen, and now they're not. Now Etsy is all about Etsy, and I still like Etsy and I still use Etsy, and I'll talk about that at the end, why I still use Etsy. But back in the day, it was a little bit easier to get seen on Etsy. Nowadays, you go to the homepage and, you'll have a bar that's like, what you viewed last time. And then there's a bar underneath that's like, this is what Etsy thinks you might want to look at, whether it pertains to that stuff or not, who knows. And then below that, you get into this Etsy free-for-all where it's like, whee, everything's under there. And it's like, so, and they tend to go toward a certain aesthetic, which they probably should for their branding purposes, but it's hard to get featured like it used to be on the front page. So external marketing is a must, whether you put up an Etsy store or any website. Just treat an Etsy store just like you would any other online website that you are going to be selling something on. Think about other places that will draw customers to you. Like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest, Reddit, Tumblr. If you have a blog, all these different things will help to spread your name out there and hopefully get customers connected to your store. And I think this is one of the hardest things, because it's almost like you're in a rowboat in the middle of an ocean filled with a billion other rowboats. And you're like, look at my rowboat. And everybody else is like, no, look at my rowboat. It's better. So that's hard. That's really difficult. Especially if you're new to the product that you're making, or you're new to even having an online store and you're not real sure about social media. You're not real sure about what branding is or an online presence. It can be really difficult. So if you are already familiar with one part of social media or another, like if you really, really like Facebook or you really, really like Instagram, go with that first. Don't try to do everything at once. Just try to pick one thing at a time and try to devote some time to getting some product photographs out there and links back to your store. I think another thing, as far as like your store in specifically, whether it's an Etsy store or just any website, is to keep it simple. So, and what I mean about that is you don't want your store to be complicated or confusing. So let's say you've opened up an Etsy store and you're going to be selling like handcrafted soap and bath fizzies and that kind of thing, handcrafted bath and body stuff. Please don't start listing monogrammed cutting boards and peanut butter fudge in there too. Make a different Etsy store. You can have as many Etsy stores as you want. Keep it separated. You don't want a customer coming to your store and looking at your products and going, so is the soap fudge, or is the fudge soap, or why do I need a cutting board? Is the soap, do I need a cutting board? I mean, just keep it simple. If you go to some of the successful websites, especially those on Etsy, the storefronts, you will see a consistency to their product line. And if you make great fudge, that is awesome. Make a different website for another storefront for that. And you will do better if you do that. Because A confused mind says no. So if somebody comes to your store and they are confused as to what you're selling or what you're trying to market, they're just going to shut down and just go on to the next store. So even if you have something that they might like, if they're confused about it, they're not gonna bother. So I think the only thing that comes to my mind, and I'm sure there's other exceptions to the rule, but an exception that does come to mind is like those of you that are going to be selling vintage, retro, antique, whether it's supplies or what other kind of products that it might be, those people have more of a free ticket, because when you go to a store that sells vintage or antique or retro, you expect to see toy cars next to alarm clocks, and it's okay. I mean, I wouldn't be throwing food in there because they're going to be like, is this like fudge from the 1950s? So don't do that. But they kind of get a free ticket when it comes to being able to be more diverse in their products, because it's kind of like going into an antique store. You know, you're not only going to see dressers or, you know, coffee tables, you're going to see all kinds of things. So, and I'm sure there are other exceptions to the rule, but even people that like sell supplies, if they're going to have like scrapbooking supplies, and then they also want to have like jewelry making supplies, I highly recommend that you make 2 separate stores, because suppliers usually have a lot of listings in the hundreds. And so you go on there and you see 200 listings for scrapbook supplies, and then you see 200 listings for jewelry supplies, jewelry making. It's just too complicated. And a lot of people, again, just won't take the time because they're not interested in half of what you're selling. So keep it simple. The last thing that I'm going to talk about today, and is probably one of the most important things, is your photography. And good photography can make a store, and bad photography can break a store. And I've seen it happen. I've seen folks with absolutely phenomenal product, but because their photographs sucked, they did not have any successful sales. They didn't grow. They didn't progress. They closed down shop because just because of the way their online presence was tarnished by bad photographs. And I'm not saying that you have to hire a professional photographer to take your photographs. Back in the day, maybe you did, because, you know, flip phones kind of stunk at taking pictures. You didn't want to see those. But most smartphones actually take pretty decent photographs. And so if you just get decent at taking photographs, even with your phone, you certainly don't have to go out there and buy a $3,000 camera to take your product photographs with. Absolutely not. There are some tips and tricks about using, whether it is a camera or your smartphone. There are definitely some tips that you need to keep in mind no matter what you're using. Some tablets and iPads even take decent photographs, but most of the time a smartphone will take much better photographs than a tablet or an iPad will. So if you have both, test them out and see which one looks better. The tricks and tips that I would have to say with any kind of product photography is keeping a clean background. And that is very important, because when you go to especially successful stores and you look down their products, their backgrounds aren't what's standing out to you. What should be standing out to you is their product. And so when you skim down all their listings, the product should be popping out to you, but the background should kind of blend away. And that's what you want it to do. You want your background to blend away. So, and it doesn't have to be expensive. So go to an art supply store or a craft store, buy a nice big piece of white foam core board. Buy 2 if you want, so you can put one that the product is going to sit on, and then set one up in the back so that you'll have a background behind it if you don't have like a white wall or something, or if you're not going to be taking pictures straight down. I mean, they're cheap. They're just a couple of bucks. And keep everything not complicated. And I'm going to say that a lot. So like, even if you're using fabric, and fabric is harder to use, and you would think, oh, I've got grandma's tablecloth, and that's great. But the way fabric will fold and the light will hit folds, and the weaves in the fabric can do you more harm than good. Wrinkles in the fabric can detract. And so unless you are adept at photo editing, I would steer clear of fabric. And I hate to say that because a lot of people do use fabric. But there's a learning curve to just using fabric. Isn't that crazy? So try to get a nice flat matte surface as opposed to using anything that's shiny or glossy, or if you are going to use fabric, excuse me, if you are going to use fabric, don't use fabric that has bright colors or stripes or big flowers or anything like that. You don't want that to compete with the product. You don't want a customer to come to your store and to look at your product line and all they see is this bright flower background, and then the product just kind of sitting there in the middle and everything's fighting for attention. That's absolutely what you don't want. So keep it simple. As you get more adept at taking your product photos, you will be able to bend those rules a little bit with props and that kind of thing. But at first, I just suggest to keep it as simple as possible. And then that way you can start with the basics and then work your way up. Use also natural light. So if you look at some of the successful stores, again, you'll notice when you look down their product line that their photographs not only have similar clean backgrounds, but they will have similar lighting tones. So they are, and some of these are taking photographs in professional photography studios, and that is not an option for most people. And I mean, I get that. When I started out, I was new in photography. I had a decent camera, but I wasn't sure how to use all the features. So what I did is I went to Amazon and I bought one of the pop-up soft boxes, and I think they're under 20 bucks. And you can take it outside in bright light, put your product in on the inside, and it just creates this glow of beautiful diffused light. And so that's what I did at first. And then I moved into more, then it's winter. You don't want to go outside, or it's raining, or whatever it is, and you have to learn how to adapt. Not all of us live somewhere where it's sunny, 365 from 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. So, but use natural light. So I suggest finding a place in your home, your workshop, at work, wherever it is that you take your photographs for your products, and find a similar spot that you can either leave a table set up in, or where you can easily set something up back in the same area. I suggest near a nice big window, so you're going to have lots of light, not direct light, not like direct sunlight, but bright light for sure. And then that way your product will be evenly lit and not like a shadow on one side and then blown out highlights on the other side. And try to take your photographs during the same time of day if you don't have photo editing software, because you don't want like this picture to be like beautiful and you took it like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and the light was perfect and everything's just worked so well, and then the next picture it was 10 o'clock at night and you just turned on a lamp and then it's yellow cast and weird. So you want similar tonal values as far as light and color going along. And I know this sounds just super complicated. So just keep in mind, just use natural light when at all possible, bright natural light. And keeping that clean background is important when using that light, when keeping that flow, that consistent flow in mind, because you don't want a picture of your gorgeous product, whatever you're selling, sitting on your coffee table next to a Coke can and your car keys. That's not you know, even on eBay, you wouldn't want to do that. So be cognizant of what you can see in the picture and keep it uncluttered. And it doesn't have to be a white background all the time. You just want it clean and simple. It can be dark and moody and still clean and simple. But if you're going to do dark and moody, do it all dark and moody. Do all your products dark and moody. So that consistent flow is very, very important. When looking at those successful shops, when you look through their product line, everything is consistent and just flows nicely from one product to the next. And you're not noticing anything but the product. And that's just how that works because you don't want it to fight with anything else in the background. Okay, I think that's it. That was a lot, right? But I'm just going to stop there because that's a lot to take in. So let's just try to consider those things for now, and let me know down in the comments if there are maybe some other things that you have come across while you were branding your website, while you were marketing, while you were learning photography, so that we can help folks out that are just out there and they're new and they're kind of maybe a little bit hesitant to start because it is difficult. It's not as easy as just putting up a store and expecting just to, you know, earn millions overnight. No, I don't know anybody who earns millions overnight, but you know what I mean. So yeah, so that is my tricks and tips for today, and if I think of anything else, I will make a second version of this. And if you have any questions, please put them down in the comment section below, and I will try to get to them as I can. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye guys.